Hey Legionnaires! Sunua's Saga Hellblade 2 is now available on Steam as well as via Xbox Game Pass, and it's running incredibly well on the Legion Go if you make a few tweaks. Unfortunately, I do have major issues with both AMD FSR 3 and XeSS in this title across all the handhelds, and the Legion Go is no exception. But if you do want a decent 30 frames per second with it looking pretty much crystal clear, making good use of that gigantic Legion Go screen, then you do want to pay attention. This does work in performance mode, although we do get some loading hitches with these settings out of the box, so I will recommend that we tweak that a little bit later. But as you can see out of the gate, it does look very nice. But if we turn on FSR 3, even in quality mode, we get a significant amount of artifacting around the character. Although we do jump up into the 40s on the frames per second front, the amount of ghosting and artifacting that FSR 3 brings in, I just don't think is worth it. But if you don't mind it, then this will definitely smoothen things out. And even if we go over to often the more favored XeSS, that still doesn't clear up a lot of that artifacting. So I do recommend actually keeping this on TSR at 90. And as you'll see with the performance mode, it does still dip under that 30 frames per second occasionally, and we do get a few lag spikes here and there as we get into some new loading areas. However, we pretty much have zero artifacting, and it is so much cleaner. As you'll see, especially with a lot of terrain, when we put on that FSR 3, we're back down towards the 30 frames per second mark, and we get so much ghosting and it really blurs out the background. And one of the biggest problems I have with FSR 3 is hair and grass, and you'll see this as we walk down the hill. The grass shimmers, and if you look at the guy's beard, it really just looks ugly and really sparkly, and that's a major problem I've always got with FSR 3 in general. And if we switch this over to XeSS, we'll see that again we get rid of that kind of issue with the grass. Even on XeSS quality mode, we still get quite a lot of artifacting and blurriness around the character, and a lot of blur just in general across the whole of the image. It just doesn't look clear. And this is the major issue I have, as once you've seen the imagery with just the TSR, even at 90% resolution scale, it's really hard to cope with either of these other modes. As again, back to the TSR mode, just look how much clearer it all is. But we do get that lag spike as you just saw there, especially transitioning areas, which can be a little bit annoying. But if we do change this from the performance setting and increase it up to the custom 30 watt TDP mode, so you are going to want to be powered for the most part of this. So setting it to the custom TDP in performance and 30 watts max, and also put the fans on full speed. It can be a little bit frustrating, but since the latest BIOS, it does seem to keep overheating and minimizing the performance mode for me if I don't have those fans on full speed. I am going to do a full reset soon to see if that cures it, but hopefully the next BIOS will also help. If you want to tweak just a little bit more performance out of it, you can put the TSR on the dynamic resolution scaling, targeting around 35 frames per second. And then when we do get some of the nicer scenes where it is actually over 35 natively, then we will get 100% clarity again. So you can see with the TSR, not much issues around the guy's beard. And when we go into some of the cutscenes, although we'll get minor dips here and there under 30 frames per second, we retain that clarity and things just look so much cleaner. And with these settings, I will recommend you just keep it at the 30 watts and turn off any of the overlays, and you really will just have a great time with this game. As you can see, it's looking crystal clear in combat, and you would never notice if it is dipping. Although in these instances, it doesn't actually dip under 30 frames per second. The combat is actually very well optimized, especially as a lot of it is in kind of its own environment. So if I put the overlay back up, you'll see that most of the time we are sat well over that 30 frames per second mark with these effects going off. So it really isn't a problem. Especially when we come back out into the outside world, you can just enjoy the beauty of this game. Now, as a full Unreal Engine 5 game, this definitely is pushing the boundaries of the handhelds, but we really are going to need to see some huge improvements over the upscaling technologies to make them more viable in future, as even up close, TSR with at 90% render can still give some speckly effects, but overall is still much cleaner than the other methods. Let us know if you're going to be diving into Hellblade 2 on the go and what settings you've been running. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.